Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome back. Just sharing some milestone news. We're over 1,000 subscribers now, and I really appreciate all you folks out there, you newcomers that have joined the adventure here at the Lazy T. So welcome. So on to today's project. We're down here. This is cabin 3 behind me, and we're moving on to actually putting up some roofing panels today. So I made a trip down to my metal supplier yesterday, picked up my sheet good and all the trim pieces and stuff like that, ridge cap, drip edge, stuff like that. So we've got all that ready to go. First things first, so I need to get this, where is it, all that strapping up there on the roof. So Rebecca and I were down here yesterday afternoon snapping some chalk lines for the rafters. So all that's kind of lined up now. I wanted to get some measurements off of some of the trim pieces to figure out, where I can best center the strapping that I'm going to put on the roof. So I've got that all figured out. So really it just comes down to now getting that wood up onto the roof and sinking it into the rafters. So let's show you what we got, what we're working with here as far as our panels go, and our thoughts on why we went this direction. So here are our panels. Okay, there's 19 in here. I don't think I'm actually going to use all 19. 18 should cover it, and I'll explain why there was some confusion here in just a second. So this is straight Galvalume, okay? There's no paint on these, and we went with the straight silver simply because we think it's really gonna contrast kind of the stain that we have on that's going to cover all the trim work. So you can see here the posts are done, as well as the fascia out here is all finished. So we think that silver contrast, and in fact the underlayment, the synthetic underlayment that's up there right now, it's that whitish line that goes across there. That's similar to kind of what we're looking for, a very distinct pop of the roof in contrast to the kind of the darker stain color. So that's kind of why we went here with this silver. So those were the panels. Let me slide over here. Here is the rest of the accoutrement. So I got ridge cap over here. There's some drip edge there, and as well as some gable end rake that's going to go up. So I've got to do some sheet metal work. I've watched more than my fair share of videos on how to kind of bend the ends in and stuff and really kind of give it a finished look. So we're going to give some of that a go once we get to that point. There is some rain scheduled for this afternoon. Now, whether or not that actually shows up is, another thing. So let me get to work. Let me get this strapping up there. And yeah, well, we've got to start moving forward. Here we go, guys. All right, guys, just for some reference here, this is the eave side that obviously goes up to the peak there. So strapping is going to go right down along the edge of the eave. Okay, and this will all get covered up by the drip edge. Okay, so you won't see any of that. You won't see any strapping anywhere on the roof because it's all going to be covered by detail pieces. So, but the lower strapping is going to go directly along the edge here. Now, the gable end, a little different. Okay, the edge of my gable piece that kind of comes over the edge is 5.5 inches to the drilling tab. So I've got to come in just a little bit to get that centered on my strapping. So that one will be off the edge just a little bit. Again, you won't see it because of the way that gable piece kind of covers the fascia on the front here. And then these red lines here, these are our rafters. They are 2 foot on center. See kind of most of those. I went with the red because the blue side I was having, I wouldn't say issues, but I know the red is more permanent than the blue. So I just didn't want these washing away if it did rain overnight. And then from there, from the eave side here, we're going to go 2 feet for strapping across the roof. So 2 foot on center for my screws into the metal roof, all the way up to the ridge. All right, guys, I got the first course up here along the eave edge there. You know, really kind of went in with no problem. Just leaving a gap, a little bit of a gap, 1/8 inch, 1/4 inch, something like that, along the butt ends, just to allow, you know, any water that gets down there, it gives it a place to exit if it gets to that point. Now that that's done, I can start to lay out. I got to snap some chalk lines across the middle here. I'm going to have 3 support rows across the middle every 2 feet, and then I'm going to have a row here at the top that's going to support underneath the ridge cap as well as the sheet themselves. So I'm going to be measuring up 2 feet, snapping a chalk line, up another 2, snapping a chalk line, and so forth. So let's get into it. Now that I've got my chalk lines laid out across the roof, I'm going to start to measure, because these boards are generally over 12 feet, maybe 12.1, something in that neighborhood, so I can't just throw them down. So we're going to measure out to where our seam is, and in this case, I don't really want to stagger them, I don't believe, because if water does get down behind them and it starts to run, I want it to go straight downhill. I don't want to have to make it do a zigzag to try and get out. I want it to come straight down the roof line. So, but that's kind of my thought process behind that. So we'll make some measurements and yeah, we'll get things rolling. I'm back down here on the ground with my trim pieces, and I want to kind of explain why I was waiting for this trim work before I put up my strapping up there on the roof. So this is the gable trim, the edge trim for the gable. So this part here hangs out over the front of the fascia, okay? And then this part here, actually it might be a little deceiving because just the way it's sitting, it's going to sit like that on the roof. Okay, so this will be flush with the top of the roof, and this will go down the front. So what I was waiting on was I needed to get a measurement here out to this edge of the trim. So you can see that this is basically, it's roughly 5.5, a little lower, maybe 5 5/8, something like that, from this edge to here. So my screw, when I screw this into, this will go through this trim, through a sheet on the roof, and then into the strapping and OSB eventually. So I want the vertical strapping on each end to be, to have this section right in the middle of that strapping, so I can screw straight down through this into strapping. See, if I put my strapping along the side of the front of the building, and it was 3.5 inches wide, it's not even going to come to the end. It's going to stop right here. It would sit right in here, and I don't really want that there. I need it under a structural piece of this steel, so I need to have it bumped over. So the middle, I'm just going to say 5.5, just for easy round numbers. 5.5 inches from the edge of the building in is where I'm going to have the center of that strapping. I'm sorry, I actually want that, well, let's say 5 inches. Yeah, about a 1/2 inch in from the end here. This is probably a 3/4 or maybe an inch. Yeah, it's an inch. So I want it in a 1/2 inch centered on this flap here. So yes, round about 5 inches or so from the edge of the building is where my strapping is going to go, so this can lay directly in the middle of it. So same thing going on with the roof. You can see here, this is the ridge cap, okay? And I needed to know the distance between the center of the ridge cap and down onto the middle of this nailer portion, okay? This section here is 1 3/4, I'm sorry, 1.5. So 3/4 of an inch from the edge is where I want my screws to go. So as I can see, this is 8 inches to the peak. I'm going to minus 3/4, right? And it's going to be 7 1/4. So I'm going to measure from the peak down 7 1/4, and that's where the center of my strapping is going to go, so I can get this nailer or the screw area centered on that strapping. So it'll be somewhat easier to explain once I get things up there. Okay guys, I've got the ridge cap nailer in place, as well as the gable trim nailer in place as well. So again, this will make a lot more sense once I get the pieces up here, but basically that's the line there that I showed you on the ridge cap that is going to be get 6 inches or actually into the crests of the ribs. So I guess that's every 9 inches going across. That'll go into that nailer there, and then this one here will get that gable end nailer, that little lip I showed you. That'll run down the middle of that nailer there, and that'll all get screwed into that support. We're just about ready to really get rolling here on the second side. So I've got the first set already installed all the way across, and then before I went up to lunch, I pre-cut a bunch of the others that come across through the rest of the roof here. So this should snap together pretty easy. I've already got lines snapped, and we're ready to go. So, funny thing happened. I'm just laughing my head off at this one. So in my, gee, I've already got the line snapped, let me just throw some stuff down. So you saw me get that line across there relatively quickly. Well, I put it on the bottom of the line instead of the top, so I put it in the wrong spot. So rather than, so I've got two pieces of strapping here that are right next to each other, and the line I snapped is actually right in the middle. So I needed to be on top of the line, and so instead of ripping the one out and repositioning it, because then that's going to just leave me with a bunch of holes in my roof, I just went ahead and thrown one right on top of it there. So I've got some side-by-side strapping, no big deal. You know, obviously I'm probably going to be short strapping now, so this is good times. So yeah, definitely this falls under your measure twice, cut once thing, and yeah, well, that's how it is. Let's move on. All right, guys, I just walked over the entire roof surface here, just checking nails, make sure they're all kind of below the surface of all of this strapping, make sure I got, you know, nails where there should be nails and stuff like that. So really my only hiccup was this couple boards here that ended up on the wrong side of the line, but that's just attention to detail. I got to do a better job of that. So everything looks good as far as I can tell. You know, I've left gaps everywhere. There's some weeping holes in some places. It's, I don't think I'm really going to have any problems with this. It all went up pretty well. So, okay, we're going to get on to, I'm going to sit down, really look at the metal, make sure I have a good plan moving forward, and we're going to go from there. There they sit right there. So we'll get moving. All right, got the north end here of cabin 3, got the drip edge on, and it looks fantastic. Again, we like that contrast between this darker stain here and this silver. I think that really looks sharp. And the fact that it went on straight as an arrow, that is great. So this is 3 sections. The tin that I got, generally all their trim pieces come in 10-foot sections. So, you know, I do have some seams in there, but you can't even see. I'm 3 feet away from it and I can't see it, so it blends in fantastic. So Install, this is just standard. I think these are 1.5-inch roofing nails, about 12 inches apart, 8 to 12 inches apart. And this is the only real kind of detail thing I've done this on this end and the other end. It's just kind of cutting some pieces out and then folding this piece in. This just kind of helps it, well, it just helps it, you know, to find the end of it. I can do this by myself. I don't need to have it lined up or anything. It's just, that's just how that goes on there. So this end has that, and then the other end has this little folded over piece as well. And this is just stuff I picked up off of YouTube. So that's good. This is in. I'm gonna go take a look at some panels now. We might get some panels up today. Boy, it looks good. Now that the drip edge is up there on that north side, I'm gonna go ahead and start setting some panels. So first things first, I've got 9 panels, I believe, lined up here, stacked up, squared up, and straightened out. And I've marked my holes in accordance with like tough rib directions. So I've got, I don't know if we'll be able to see my marks here. There's one here, one here. So at the eave and the ridge, there's 2 per section. I guess if you're between this raised area and this raised area, there's 1 in each of the far sides at the eave and the ridge. Otherwise, there's only 1 per area there. So got this all set up now. Everything's marked out. I got the, you know, I've measured 100 times now, and you know, just so I don't screw this up. So I need to get some holes in here, make it easier for me to get my screws in, and we're going to do that now. How this is going to go, I learned my lesson with the bus that we remodeled, that drilling into sheet metal is really messy, and it really leads to the chance that all those little particles are going to stick to the metal and rust. So what I do now, I use punches, usually scratch awls and things like that. So I'm going to use these. You're going to watch me bang holes in these panels with some awls, and that'll keep me from having to worry about any of those pieces of scrap sticking to everything and rusting. Okay, now you can see the holes a little better here. I got them punched out. Again, this is the eave end, so there's 2 per cell. And then as we move up, I've got 2-foot increments. So 1 here, that cell, 1 here in that cell, and 1 there in that one, and 1 there as well. So single in each cell here, single in each cell here. So another set of holes. Single, 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 and then at the ridge, same thing, 2, 2, 2, and 2. All right, guys, I'm gonna go set up my string line. How I'm gonna put this up in order to make sure it's lined up, I'm gonna run a string off the eave edge. My overhang is gonna be 2 inches, so I'm gonna set up a string from one gable end to the other along the eave there, and that's what I'm going to use to line it up. Gang, up here, about to show you what I was talking about. I put up a string line here to kind of keep my panels in line. So what I do, I use it, this is just a piece of scrap wood here I have screwed into the fascia. That'll all be covered by the gable trim there. And then because I know I have a 2-inch overhang, okay, so I stretch this, so my distance between the drip edge here and this string is 2 1/8. So I know now when I pull my sheet down that if I'm just in front of that line and that string, you can see it goes all the way down to the other end. That's going to give me a nice crisp roof line as far as my sheets lining up. This way I don't have to worry anything about, what, the eave is actually doing. It may be a little wavy. It is. And, I don't have to worry really about getting, doing the old triangle and making sure it's up square and everything like that. Now, because my roof is over 27 feet, I don't have enough panels to cover. It's 27 plus 4. So I don't have enough panels technically to cover that extra 4 inches. So I'm coming in on each end by 2 inches. Okay, so, but because the gable rake, that trim piece, is 5.5 inches wide, I can get away with that, and we'll show that to you once I get it up. So I'm coming in at 2 inches on that end, which will end up being 2 inches in on this end, and we're going to use this string here to keep things in line. Let's see how it goes. Gang, I'm up here plugging away. I'm working on the second sheet right now, and it is fantastic. String line down there definitely helps if you're doing this by yourself, because this overlap at the top, let's try and focus. This overlap here at the top can be off a little bit, and you won't even notice it until you get up here to try and cinch it down. And that string line absolutely helps keep this up here. If you don't want to keep going up and down the ladder constantly, then, or have a second person up here lining that up, that string line is definitely the way to go, because it was probably off maybe, it was square down here on this end, or I should say that distance, that like 1/8 of an inch distance, and then it was a 1/4 inch off up here. But the panel felt like it was sitting as it should. So I brought this end down and shifted it, and now I just got back up on the roof here, and I'm looking at this overlap, and it's absolutely perfect. If I push that down, that's exactly what you want to see. Let's see, there we go. Yep, just like that. Absolutely perfect. Yeah, so that string line, highly recommend it. And we're going to keep charging through here. It is very ominous above me as far as clouds looking, but it's 5:45 right now. So I'll probably, I don't know. I would like to get the whole side done, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes. And my phone's about to die, so I'll catch this up. I'll catch you all when I catch you. Alright guys, got to sign off for the day. My battery is just about dead, and I'm back up here at the house, and I just wanted to, you can kind of see it down there, okay? Rebecca came down, helped me out a little bit, so we were able to knock out one more panel here before it really started to kind of rain a little harder. So we got 3 panels up, and we're ready to go to charge into tomorrow. So tomorrow, full steam into getting the rest of the sheet metal on the roof of cabin 3. Alright guys, we'll see you then.